Dr. Tommy Boyd. Free call 0500 1053 89.
Up to you if you want to make it another football-free zone between now and 4 o'clock. Of course, this afternoon's big game features those proud, handsome Italians against those skulking Chileans. 0-0 nailed on, so get down and get the 5-1 there. And that will heighten the interest in what could be the game that throws up either a nailed-on winner or a nailed-on outsider, one of those two sides. But that's all the football between now and 4 o'clock, unless you want to introduce football, because today's discussion between now and 4 o'clock, in fact, is something that is such an integral part of you, and yet you never think about it unless you see it, which you very rarely do. Hopefully you haven't seen any of yours for a long, long, long time. But if you do, it's both chilling and yet heartwarming when you see it. It's your blood. Blood! The older we get, the less we care about our blood. When we're very small, our blood is very important to us, because when we cut ourselves, there it is, and we're fascinated by this flow of this richest, most handsome liquid you could possibly imagine. We have to explain to children very carefully that that cut will heal, and generally speaking, it does. Are you a haemophiliac? Free call 0500 1053 89. There are some important misconceptions about haemophiliacs, which are well worth clearing up. I could have put that a bit better, I suppose, really. But anyway, free call 0500 1053 89. Blood. We've got 8 pints of it. It formed the basis of the most famous half-hour of sitcom ever performed on British television. Blood. Blood. It's wonderful stuff. When you think about it, it's sticky, isn't it? It's exactly sticky enough to stick up about 30 seconds after you have cut yourself. So sticky that if you get a surfeit of it on your fingers, your own blood, you do notice that it's sticky. And it is warm. It feels warmer than you do. The first time you notice warm blood on your hands and it's yours, it's an extraordinary experience. It reminds you both at the same time of your own mortality. Nothing reminds you more of your mortality than looking down and seeing a significant quantity of your own blood. But what is a significant quantity of your... What's the worst cut you've ever had? What's the most number of stitches you've ever received for a wound? Did they go in whilst the blood was still trying to make its way out? Were you watching? How did it go? How did it feel? Free call 0500 1053 89. But this is the $64,000 question between now and 4 o'clock. People often say, how would you describe a rainbow to a blind person? And of course, it's a challenge nobody can begin to undertake. But look, you've got taste buds. I've got taste buds. You've tasted everything. I've tasted everything. Supposing I've never tasted blood, which of course I have, but supposing I never have, you have, okay? So tell someone who's got their taste buds what blood tastes like. What does blood taste like? It tastes like absolutely nothing else. It's not an unpleasant taste, is it? Hence the Dracula myths, I suspect. But what does it taste like? My team here are torn. One half say it tastes slightly metallic and aluminium-y, and the other half say it tastes quite sweet and is definitely on the road to being a jam-like flavour. Free call 0500 1053 89. It's not about football, but then again it could be. It's blood. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
This is Talk Radio, the conversation of the nation. Free call 0500 1053 89.
Now, Brenda's our first caller. In Essex, you're on Talk Radio, Brenda.
Good afternoon, Tommy.
Blood.
Well, this was for one time when I was hoping you'd get a lot of football callers, because I've got an absolute aversion to blood. The thought of it makes me feel ill. Even when I was listening to you doing your preamble, I had the phone miles from my ear, so I couldn't hear you talking about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's quite understandable, isn't it? Compared to phobias about, for example, the amount of space you have around you, which I always think is a bit odd. Common, but odd. A fear of blood is perfectly natural, but I don't know what a phobia about blood is called. What's the name for phobics like... Hemophobia.
Hemophobia.
You just made that up, didn't you?
I'm sorry.
But it works for me. I'll tell you what, can you spell haemophiliac?
No, I can't. I'm useless at spelling. I'd embarrass myself by even trying.
No, I'm impressed by the number of people I work with who can actually spell haemophiliac.
Well, I'd expect nothing less from the people that work at Talk Radio. You're all brilliant.
Thank you for that. Free call 0500 10 53 89. We naturally wince a little. I'm sure our pupils dilate or the opposite whenever we see a photograph even of somebody's blood. It's perfectly understandable. The reason it's red and the reason that red signifies danger, it's across the globe, this one. It's obviously because that's the colour of blood. And then it goes brown, though, doesn't it? Once it's been on the outside for about, half an hour. Tony calls from South London. You're on Talk Radio, Tony.
Hello, Tommy.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hi.
Oh, by the way, I just wanted to say that was a very good own goal yesterday against Brazil.
Well, I don't know why I tried to handball it in as well as chest it in. I don't know if you've seen the replays carefully.
Yeah, I think, I don't know what you were doing there, Tom.
I really do look to be making every effort to get it in the net, don't I?
You certainly did, Tom.
My moment of fame.
Well, there you go.
Football-free zone, technically, though. Yes, blood.
My story, Tommy. I was having an argument one day, and I don't know how it happened, but I actually trapped the tips of my finger in a door.
Yes.
I went downstairs 2 seconds after in a darkened room, and I went to switch the light on, and there was a strange sensation of not being able to switch the light.
Yeah.
So I used my other hand, and when I switched the light on, Tommy, there was blood gushing from my fingers. The tops of my fingers were cut off.
But you couldn't feel a thing?
I couldn't. Well, when I switched the light on, I saw it, and Tommy, I tell you, I had the biggest fright of my life.
The strange thing, of course, strange thing about pain, isn't it? Sometimes you can actually hurt yourself, and you get a few seconds in which to say to yourself, this is going to hurt, when my nerves get round to relaying the pain.
That's
but
right.
In your case, it was how long before it began to hurt?
Well, as I said, I sort of like slammed the door and walked out the room and went downstairs, so it must have been about a good sort of 10 seconds after.
Yeah.
And, as I said, I went to switch the light on, but I couldn't.
Mm.
It was when I actually did switch the light on with my other hand, and I saw the tips of my fingers hanging off with the blood gushing out. I'm talking about gushing to.
Oh, yeah. Stitches?
Yeah. Well, when I went to hospital, they gave me this needle. Well, I had a needle which must have been about, 10 inches long, which they stuck in the top of my hand to numb it. But unfortunately, the fluid was sort of like dripping out the bottom of my hand along with the blood and the gore and everything. It wasn't a very nice picture, Tommy, put it that way.
No.
It was horrible.
No.
Absolutely horrible.
Since you mentioned hand injuries, I was whittling a model of Peter Osgood. Using a knife belonging to my father when I was young, and I took my knuckle off.
Oh, God.
Yes. And
that
it went
must
on
have hurt.
Well, it didn't at first, as discussed. It went on the floor. I picked it up, wrapped a handkerchief round it, and ran to the casualty of my local hospital. And they got me into a cubicle fairly quickly because I was obviously...
Oh, Tommy, listen. Sorry, I'm sorry to cut you, but I'm meant to be going to work. And my boss is walking to the car, and he must be wondering what the hell I'm doing.
Oh, well, exactly. You're listening to a tedious story. I can live with that. Go on, off you go. I'll give him 30 seconds to get to the car to finish it. No, I won't. So, what happened? Have you ever had anything sewn back on? Free call 0500 10 53 89, because what happened was the doctor sewed the knuckle back on to my finger. And it took, because 3 weeks later I had to go back and they took the stitches out, and it took, and there was some sensation in the knuckle. But, this is the interesting bit, honest, he'd sewn it on the wrong way round, upside down, and yet it had taken, which I find impressive. I had nothing to do with it. Ever had anything sewn back on? We're celebrating blood. It doesn't get the credit it deserves. A word with Jennifer, who calls from Cheshire. You're on Talk Radio. Hello, Jennifer.
Oh, hi, Tommy.
Hi.
I was born with a bleeding disease called von Willebrand syndrome. It's akin to haemophilia, but your bleeding time isn't as long, and you will stop eventually. It affects me when I have an operation. They have to give me some stuff first and a drip to help my blood clot. It's lack of clotting factors. Now, as a child, it didn't bother me. I used to have terrific nosebleeds and get over it. That was fine. But now, if I cut myself, I panic, which is a bit off, really, because I'm connected to nursing. And I know quite well it will start, but the sheer panic of seeing my own blood, other people's blood, doesn't affect me, but my own, I think, oh, my God.
Do you get used to seeing other people's blood, then?
Yeah.
I thought you might.
You know what to do, and you know to apply pressure and all the rest of it. But your own, because you know what can happen, it does send you into a sense of panic,
People think you have to apply tourniquets, and we've all seen those old comics and magazines where it says you have to get a piece of tie or a belt and wrap it round the limb and then get a stick and twist it. But actually all you need to do is press on the wound, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And then, go straight to hospital. But
yes.
I know this. The thing is that if I have a tooth out, I have to have it done in hospital because it might not stop bleeding. On a good day, I bleed like everybody else. On a bad day, it's as bad as a haemophiliac.
Do they know why one day's a bad day and one's a good day?
No, it just goes on a curve, and it affects your moods as well. You can be really moody when you're on a bleed day, and you're really all right when you're not. So it does affect you.
Can I ask a question about periods then?
Yeah, well, they were horrendous.
Oh.
In the end, I had to have a hysterectomy to get rid of that because, you used to have hemorrhages, they didn't have periods. So.
God.
But I'm fine now. It's 6 years ago, and I'm great. Got mummy HRT and all that.
Marvellous. And what's your disease called again?
Von Willebrand syndrome.
Von Willebrand?
Yeah.
Wasn't he the German Chancellor when I was a boy?
Oh, I don't know.
Willy Brandt, he was. Good Lord, fancy naming a bleeding disease after the German Chancellor.
I know, Jim, for God's sake. I mean...
Just what? Well, the Germans got there first with so many diseases, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
One of my favourites is Munchausen's by proxy.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a scorcher, isn't it? You must have bumped into that. Pardon?
I've got a cousin with that.
You got a cousin?
Yeah, she spends, it's not by proxy, it's Munchausen. She's in hospital a lot of the time.
Yes.
And she actually got tablets to make her better because at first she believed her. And they actually made her ill. So now she's ill she's taking tablets she didn't really need.
Oh, she was prescribed tablets for the illness that she persuaded them she had.
That's right.
But in actual fact, what she has is Munchausen's.
That's right.
For which there isn't any medication?
No, not really.
What is Munchausen's again? Because not everybody knows.
It's where you think you've got an illness and you just love going into hospital and you love the security of being there.
Yes.
And so you have imaginary illnesses, which they usually believe. Usually going with stomach pains and stuff. But she actually convinced them she had heart trouble.
It's a sort of super heavyweight version of hypochondria.
Yeah, that's right, like me with my bleeding finger.
Yes. Thanks for your call.
Okay, bye, Tommy.
Look after yourself.
You too, bye.
Free call 0500 10 53 89. A football-free zone until 4 o'clock. Celebrating blood. It really doesn't get the credit it deserves. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening. And has anybody heard anywhere of anybody doing a makeshift blood transfusion? Because you often hear about people, up the jungle having to do an appendectomy or what's the other one where they put something into your windpipe so that you can tracheotomy. Okay, but I just wonder whether if it would be possible for a doctor in the jungle. He's got two people with him. One of them needs a blood transfusion and the other one's prepared to provide it. What might you have in a typical rucksack that would enable you to do it? And could you do it? Could it be done? Has it been done? One would have thought it hasn't been done, because if it could be done, it would have been in a film already, wouldn't it, starring Gregory Peck, surely. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Alison calls from Penrith. You're on Talk Radio. Alison.
Hi, Tommy.
Afternoon.
I did some work for some people, and he was a consultant hematologist. I think that's what his title is. So all he did was blood, and I was asked to do some work in his study. And he had a bookcase, which was the length of the study. It was probably about 4 meters long by about 3 meters high. No, about 2.5 meters high. And it was all the same range of books, like encyclopedias, about 10 centimeters wide. And the title of these books was Blood. And there must have been, I don't know, I would guess there was probably about 150 to 200 books, like encyclopedia books, titled Blood.
Blood.
Yeah, and this was all one range of books.
Blood. Blood.
That's how complicated.
Yes.
It is. It was amazing.
It is. What is it? What category does it come under? It's not an organ, is it? Your blood.
I don't know.
No. Apparently everything else that's in your body is an organ. Or part of your body, isn't it? Like your intestines and things like that.
I was asked quite a lot of years ago, and my father was very poorly and has since died, and he had a rare blood disease. And when he came out of hospital, the hospital taught me to be able to read his blood readings, and if they were at certain levels, different things had to be done. And I was taught for a week how to just read one list of readings. It is so complicated.
You reminded me, when I was 14, I was given a microscope for one birthday. And I remember it's the last time I've ever deliberately cut myself to get a little bit of blood and put it on a, what do you call it, one of those smear things, you know, bit of glass.
Yeah, I know what
and have a look at it. But I couldn't see anything underneath. I couldn't focus on anything. I was hoping to see red corpuscles and white corpuscles, but they must obviously be so small that you need a proper microscope to see them.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Thanks for your call.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye. And you never hear anybody talking about a blood disease, anything other than a rare blood disease, which of course is good. Wouldn't want them to be common. Bernie calls from Sussex. You're on Talk Radio. Bernie, good afternoon.
Hi, Tommy.
Bernie.
Good afternoon to you.
Sir.
Long story short about blood. I was in the Yom Kippur War in 73 in Israel.
Yeah?
I got shot in the back. There was no one around me at the time, and the bullet spun off a shoulder. I got a platinum shoulder now. It spun all the way down. I've got 144 grossest stitches, and I went down to 3 pints of blood, knew I was dying, and practiced what I was taught to relax. I relaxed so much I stopped the blood flowing, and when the doctors got to me, which was 6 hours almost to the minute,
This is fascinating.
they had to make my blood flow.
They had to get you going
They
again.
had to get me going.
How did
because
they do that?
I don't really know, because I then started, they were talking to me afterwards. I lost 5 years memory over it and regained all but maybe 6 months now.
Was that the trauma of being shot and the shock of realising that you might die, or do you think that in part that's loss of
It was
blood?
the trauma of them get me back to life.
Yes.
Because they had to do so much repair damage in the back.
You're a programme, Bernie. You're an entire series, actually.
Yeah,
what
there's
it's
a lot
like to
about
be
it.
very badly shot and yet pull through it. I do remember about 15 years ago there was an IRA bombing atrocity in London, and a commanding officer had his legs blown off by the blast.
Yeah.
But he kept himself alive because he'd been trained.
Yes.
How to deal with the shock.
Yes.
And he knew how to deal with that. What fascinates me is that you were trained, presumably by the Israeli army?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a system. It's a special service system. It's called the technique of conscious evolution.
Okay, how do you do it? Can you pass it on?
Mind over matter.
Go on then.
Well, what you've got to do is first of all, in your training, you've got to realize what's happening. And once you realize what's happening, you've then got to literally concentrate on it and to make it stop.
Bernie, I'm going to come back to you. Will you stay where you are?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Free call 0500 10 53 89. The celebration of blood pauses so that we can get the sports news from Moz D.
Kick back, talk to Tommy Boyd. Free call 0500 1053 89.
Talking about blood, and we're with Bernie calling from Sussex, who was shot in the back during the Yom Kippur War and went down to his last 3 pints of blood. By the way, did you ever get the bullet out, Bernie?
Well, yes, the bullet was disintegrated as a lot of bone was, and I still have got a piece of it, which I didn't get till some years afterwards. Yes, I have got that.
You're the very person I want to ask about the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Yes.
Because according to the magic bullet theory, the single bullet from Lee Harvey Oswald's rifle, which missed the president, managed to inflict about half a dozen wounds on other people in the car, because each time it hit somebody, it zigzagged.
Yeah.
Does it seem plausible to you that a bullet could behave like that?
Yes,
You did mention earlier about it spiralling inside you.
Yes, it can do.
Yeah.
I've looked at that myself, and if you work it out on the mathematics of that type of thing, yes, it is possible. The freak chance happen. These do happen, and it is possible that such a thing happened.
What would you say to the bloke who shot you if you ever met him? Have you ever wondered who it was who pulled the trigger?
I have, yes. Yes, I know where he came from, his nationality, etc. But I suppose he'd just sit down and, if he was allowed to have a drink with him.
Was it in battle conditions, or was he a
yes,
sniper?
it was, yes,
Right.
very much so.
Right.
Yeah, but the easiest thing, when they start to teach you how to control things, the first thing you have to learn is to have confidence. And a simple thing which someone can learn, within 15 minutes, any person can learn to feel colour. And it's a simple process. You know the ordinary Bic pen?
Yeah?
You take an ordinary Bic pen with a black top and a red top.
Yeah.
The colour is absorbed, the heat is absorbed into the colour at certain rates. So if you take one behind your back and the other behind your back and hold them both enclosed in your palm, you can actually tell the difference between the temperature after a while.
No, Bernie!
It's a simple process.
I cannot believe that's true.
Yeah, you can practice it yourself. It shouldn't take you more.
But hang on. How does that stop you bleeding to death?
Well,
being able to do
once
that?
you find out, it's the simple things you're taught that you can feel colour. It was taught by someone who did knitting, a blind person doing knitting.
Yeah.
And from that gets your confidence to see there's no such thing as magic. And then you have to learn to relax. And there's a electronic apparatus. They use it a lot in the States at the moment for controlling blood pressure.
Right.
And what you do is you have a light, and you're told to turn the light off while you're looking at it. And after a little while, you can do it 100% of the time just by concentrating on it. And then you start to learn to lower your blood pressure, and you can do that automatically. And from then, it's a system of knowing your own. You have to learn your own body. You have to learn roughly how the body works and get the confidence, and you can actually do it.
Bernie, I've never listened to a more fascinating story. That's the simple truth. And I'm standing here listening to you, holding a red pen in one hand and a black pen in the other behind my hands.
Yeah.
Which one should feel the warmer?
You want the one with the ordinary glass one with just the simple colour top.
Why is that?
Because you don't get dispersion of heat.
Okay.
It's a simple little thing. They originally brought it out because they wanted people to be able to tell the difference between a long fuse detonator and a short detonator.
Dear God.
And you could do it in the dark.
Dear God.
That's what was brought.
Why? Is a long fuse detonator and a short fuse detonator different colours?
You make them different colours, so if you ever need to use one in dark conditions,
you can tell the difference by feeling in the dark the colour of a fuse.
Yep.
This is right on the edge of what I'm prepared to believe, Bernie, but as it's you, and you've been shot, and you wouldn't lie, would you? Because you nearly died once.
Yeah.
My God. Call again any time.
Okay. Bye.
Other people's lives, though. Andy calls from Rotherham. Andy, you're on Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, Tommy.
Just before I get to your story, what Bernie had to say has left me almost speechless.
Me too. What a fascinating story.
I'll believe him because it was Bernie. But I'd like to meet somebody who can tell colours apart by
I don't know, I've been sat here fiddling with a biro and I can't...
Have you?
Well...
I guarantee you everybody who's heard this will be trying it sometime tonight. Anyway, welcome to the radio.
Thank you. I give my blood away quite regularly. Great stuff, great atmosphere, enjoy doing it. But when you go and give blood, they do a little test on your thumb.
Yes.
And the little drop of blood goes into this thing. And if it sinks, you're okay.
Yeah.
Now, I think blood tastes metallic.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered if it sinks because it's got iron in it.
Well, I've never seen this done, and I didn't know it happened. I've given blood twice myself, and they didn't drop it into anything soluble. They just went away with the smear.
Well, they do now, and oddly enough, when my wife was expecting, harking back to the previous talk, but when my wife was expecting, she wasn't allowed to give blood, and even though she went and tried, and her blood didn't sink. And shortly afterwards, she was put on some iron tablets by the doctor.
Which is fairly common.
For her pregnancy, so she was slightly anemic, so the blood didn't sink, and she couldn't give it.
Well, we've got another 20 minutes, Andy. You never know. Somebody might be able to ring in and confirm that the reason that blood tastes, you say, a bit of iron, and plenty of people have said today to me round here that it tastes slightly metallic. Could be, obviously, because it does have a required content. It does have a required iron content, doesn't it?
And although, I mean, I don't know about giving blood in a jungle situation, like you said, because there are lots of different blood types, and I should imagine that if you mix the two, you could do as much damage as you could.
Well, now you see, again, we don't know what happens if... we know what happens if you put leaded petrol in an unleaded car. It doesn't go quite so well, but what happens if you do give somebody who's rhesus negative a pint of AB?
I don't know, you see, because occasionally I have heard that in emergency situations where a hospital or somebody might not have the exact type of blood, they get something that will do anybody.
Well, I mean,
almost sort of a blood substitute.
Yes, is it a good idea to mix and match it? So what you do is take a pint from the donor and then a pint from the recipient, mix it all up, so that it's not such a shock to the system when it goes in,
genetically change people. That must be possible, because when our first baby was born, apparently my wife and I have got two completely opposite and not very good matching blood types. And the doctor spoke to us about having what was called a blue baby. In other words, a baby would need a blood transfusion as soon as he was born. Because of our two different types. So I guess there must be a universal blood.
I always wonder whether anybody pointed out to Prince Charles when he was recently going on about the dangers of genetically engineered vegetables that his family is about the only example we have yet of a genetically engineered family.
Very interested.
Doubt it. Thank you, Andy, for your call. Free call 0500 10 53 89. It might be only a smear to you, mate, but it's life or death to some poor wretch. We're giving blood the once over. It really does deserve a round of applause. It's fantastic stuff. And 99 times out of 100, it knows exactly when to coagulate and then when to just fall away, revealing that beautiful pink flesh of a freshly healed wound. It's great stuff. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Lorraine. Join me, Lorraine Kelly, tomorrow from 1 o'clock.
This is Talk Radio, the conversation of the nation. Free call 0500 1053 89 now.
And it's a great badge, a little bit of blood. English footballers, for example, always cherish the fact that the English football shirt is white, because then if they do cut themselves playing in international, they get a little bit of blood on their shirt, and it is always the picture that makes the back pages in the news at 10. Free call 0500 10 53 89. There, it was nearly a football-free zone. Brian calls from St Helens. You're on Talk Radio, Brian. Good afternoon. Sorry, that was my knee. What?
I've just been, as you're talking about blood, thoughts have been running through my mind. I think blood tastes a little like cutlery. I don't know whether perhaps you're eating and then you taste the knife or the fork or the spoon. I think that's got a resemblance to the taste of blood.
But, well, a lot of people have been saying it tastes a bit metallic-y. That's how you describe it to somebody who'd never tasted it, a bit metallic-y.
Like a spoon.
Yeah.
And then another thought come to my head is, I was just thinking, the taste of blood isn't that bad. You yourself said you've tasted it and you didn't think it tasted that gruesome.
No, it tastes good, doesn't it? The only thing that prevents it becoming a pleasant experience, of course, is the realisation that if you're tasting your own blood, it means you've got a problem.
Yeah, well, if you wanted to take up perhaps an occupation of tasting other people's blood, you could perhaps turn into a vampire. You could moonlight as a vampire in your spare time. I think it'd be great. Dress in black, sleep all day, bite women, young women, live in big castles.
Yeah, it would be a great life, wouldn't it? Certainly female vampires. I don't know whether women find male vampires attractive, but female vampires always seem to me to have a lot going for them.
Well, wouldn't you say vampires, it's a bit of a romantic life to be a vampire?
Oh, it is. It is. And people like dangerous partners for high romance. Don't know why.
Well, this is it, you see. So I think that could, if you like the taste of blood, take up being a vampire. Just a thought from me for the day.
Well, it's better than the one they do on the other station. Thank you, Brian. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Years ago, I found myself working in the Masai Mara, which is a huge slab of East Africa, where a tribe you've probably heard of called the Maasai live. And they are big men too. And they live in huts made out of cow's waste, cow dung. Truly. Anyway, these men, who apparently are very, very sound in limb and apparently also sound in mind, eat or drink nothing but blood or milk. And I've seen this. They have cattle which roam around the village, and the men, who are superbly turned out, in spite of their primitive circumstances, superbly turned out, will, if they're feeling hungry or thirsty, simply go up to a passing cow which has a tap inserted into its neck and pour themselves half a cup of blood, which they will then mix with some milk from the animal and drink it down. And that's all they live on. And sometimes you really don't need the X-Files and you don't need Roald Dahl, because there really are things going on out there which are that extraordinary. And as I say, they're very, very... the men, the average height of the men is 6'5". You've heard about this lot. Extraordinary business. Beck calls now from South London. We're talking about blood, Beck, and swapping stories.
Hi.
You're on Talk Radio. Hi.
Tommy, hi. My daughter is now 6.5, but when she was about 2, she started getting nosebleeds regularly. And it always really, really upset me seeing all this blood coming out of her nose, because she used to get them quite badly. But as the years went by, I got used to it, and it didn't worry me so much. But about a week ago, less than that actually, about 4 or 5 days ago, she got the mother of all nosebleeds, and we were playing rough and tumble, and I accidentally jabbed her with my elbow. And she said, "Oh, I've got a nosebleed," went upstairs to the bathroom, put some tissue on it, and then came down about 10 minutes later and said, "It won't stop." So I started to worry, and I thought, oh, God. I said, "Just sit calmly, come and sit down, put some tissue over it, pinch it hard." Now, I normally never tell her to pinch it because she's such an expert at it now, she can deal with it herself. She's only 6, but she'll go upstairs and she'll actually come down to me sometimes and say, "I had a nosebleed a little while ago," and I think, well, she sorted it.
Fantastic.
This time, I actually had to say to her what they always tell you to do, which is to pinch it, because I thought if I don't do this, it's never going to stop. So she sat there for about 5 minutes and pinched it really hard, like I told her. And I said, "Move the tissue away now, we'll see if it stopped." And she pulled this massive half loo roll of tissue away from her nose, and this cascade of blood fell from her nose, and I thought, oh God, I'm getting frightened now. My other daughter was running about the house happy as Larry. "Oh, Grace has got a nosebleed." No problem whatsoever. So I said, "Pinch it even harder." So she pinched it even harder, and suddenly her eyes started to bleed. Now, I'd never seen anything like this in my life, and it was like something out of The Exorcist. It was absolutely terrifying to see. There were no other adults in the house. It was quite late at night. It was about 9:30, and her eyes are bleeding. And I thought, right, I better phone for an ambulance. A part of me was thinking, I'm sure there's a hole at the corner of the eye where your tears come out of.
Well, we're told, aren't we, that eyes, nose and throat are connected, and if I ever have eye drops, then sometimes I can taste them at the top of my nose, the back of my mouth.
That's exactly what kept coming into my mind.
But this is unbelievable.
The terror of it, I can't tell you. The rational part of my mind was telling me, don't worry, it's because the nose is connected to the eyes. But the mother part of me, that was all on my own, with another child as well, kept thinking, she's hemorrhaging, she's dying, she's going to be dead in a minute. So I phoned 999, told the ambulance lady, who freaked out over the phone and said to me, "Oh my God, that sounds awful." She said, "We'll get a blue light to you as soon as possible." So I thought, right, okay, be calm. Put my coat on, put my bag over my shoulder, got my other child dressed. Sat there for a few minutes longer. Every time she's squeezing her nose, these fat teardrops of blood are rolling down her face. By this time, she's got blood in her hair, blood down her neck, blood in her hands, blood coming out of her mouth. I thought in a minute it's going to come out of her ears. Of course, that's not going to happen, but, you overreact. The ambulance people got there and they said, "Oh, we've seen this before. It's because of such and such, this duct." And when you pinch your nose, if you've got a massive bleed quite high up, it's got nowhere to go. So it backs up and comes out of your eyes. But I was so frightened. Just telling you about it now, I'm shaking.
I'm sure. How long ago was this?
It was about 4 or 5 days ago.
Are you all right?
I wasn't at the time.
Have you had somebody put you right? Because you need a trip to the docks or somebody who can really square this off with you, because this is... If you're not suffering from the old, post-traumatic shock syndrome, then nobody's ever going to, Mrs.
She is so calm, though. She's told her teacher, she's told our friends and family, I had a very bad nosebleed, and she looked in the mirror. When I kept saying to her, "Grace, darling, let me look in your eye just for a minute," and I pulled down her lower lid, and I thought, I know what it is. She's accidentally wiped some blood from the tissue onto her eyelid, and of course, I thought the relief, thank God for that. But then she would squeeze it again, and this blood would appear, and I thought, it can't be wiping it into her eyelid. It must be coming from her eye.
Listen, just stay where you are for a second, will you?
Okay.
Have you got another 2 minutes?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Oh, good. I need to go and sit down for a second. Back to Becky in just a second, because if you're half as worried about her as I am, having to go through that and see that, then, well, we'll square it with her in a tick. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. Oh dear, there's a good argument for listening.
Talk to Tommy Boyd. Free call 0500 1053 89. 0500 1053 89.
Becky, you still there in South London?
I am, Tom, yeah.
Thanks for hanging on.
That's okay.
Your daughter's fine. It's clear that Grace is okay and cool about it, but it is you I'm worried about, because nobody should have to see their daughter crying blood. Are you okay?
I am okay. I tell you, it's very therapeutic to tell you about it. I've told my mum, and I've told my daughter's teacher, and I've told one friend, but nonetheless, it was so scary, and I'm a natural panicker. something, like live on a knife edge most of the time. And she's so accustomed to this blood coming out of her nose for no explained reason, which the doctors have told us is sometimes does happen with young children.
Oh,
but
sure.
when this happened, I can't tell you, I was so frightened. I thought,
yes.
well, I've lost her.
That's it, I know.
It was so scary.
Now, have you felt sort of lightheaded lately?
Yes,
since
I have.
it? Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
That's shock.
It must be the hyperventilating,
No,
isn't
it's
it,
just
probably?
it's shock.
Yeah.
It's just shock what you've got.
She's instantly become 100 times more precious than she ever was before. I look at her when she's asleep and I think, you've no idea
And
how much I
nightmares.
love you.
Have you dreamt about it yet?
I haven't.
No.
No, I haven't dreamt about it.
Well,
I've dreamt about her. but I
Sometimes
haven't
dreaming
dreamt
about it helps. Sometimes
It would do, wouldn't it?
it can do.
Sort my
But the other thing is you've hit the nail on the head, and that is talking about it. The more people you tell, for some reason, the better it will become.
Yeah.
But I'm in a curious way, I'm grateful that you rang.
Thank you.
Because it's the stuff that draws people to the radio, hearing stories like yours. I'll never forget the images that you've given me.
No.
That's why I fear for you so much. So look after yourself.
Thank you, Tom, very much.
Anytime.
Nice to talk to you.
And you.
Bye-bye then.
Well, interesting anyway. Nice can mean so many things. I'm going to bring Darren into the conversation now, calling from Manchester. Now, Darren knows a thing or three about blood, don't you, Darren?
I do.
Excellent.
I'm a vet.
Excellent.
And first of all, your previous caller mustn't worry too much. The duct that she's talking about, the lacrimal duct, is quite normal. It connects the eye, the corner of the eye, to the nose. It's where all your tears drain down normally when you're not actually crying. So any bleeding in the nose is going to back up this pipe, basically, and come out of the eyes. So nothing to worry about.
Thanks. One caller had a question, which is, does blood sink in water?
Right, yes, this is interesting, because blood obviously does contain iron. This links into some of the questions that are some of the observations that other callers have made about the metallic taste of blood. There's a lot of different metals in blood. There's iron in hemoglobin, which is a protein. It's the pigment that gives blood its red colour, and which changes colour if you're being throttled, because it goes blue because there's not enough oxygen in it.
Right.
It's the oxygen plus the iron pigment that makes it very red. And so if there's plenty of iron, plenty of hemoglobin in the red blood cells, they will be heavier than water and sink. If they're anemic, they may tend to float.
We've almost run out of time, so I'd appreciate a very quick answer to this one, but I've got to ask it.
Certainly.
We know that blood tastes. We humans can't smell it, though, but we know that, or we understand that animals can. So, A, can animals scent blood? And B, as somebody who's presumably been up to his ears a few times in blood,
absolutely.
Can you smell it?
I can certainly smell it, yes. I know when you can often smell it on your hands when you go home, even after you've washed.
Yeah.
It's, and animals certainly can smell it.
Darren, thank you so much for calling.
That's quite all right.
Stand by next for Moz D and Talk Radio's World Cup drive time. All the build-up and uninterrupted commentary. This afternoon, Italy, Chile. I'm Tommy Boyd. I look forward to talking with you from 2 tomorrow. This is Talk Radio. I do feel queasy. Can you tell? There's a good argument for listening.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.